I will do one weird thing, which is I do try to post about stuff that I attend on LinkedIn. And what I did the last time when I spoke at the Mindstone event is I took a selfie when I was on stage. And that performed really well. People really liked seeing that. So I'll try to do it again and see if it repeats. Because, you know, when you do something that you try to be scientific, you try to test it again to see if it's a one-off. So let's try this. Switch the camera. Say hello. Wonderful. All right, with that out of the way, this is me, and I will talk a bit, this should be a bit more like this. I will talk about Grok Code Fast 1 and me playing around with it to build the back end of a chat app for AI. Who of you has actually used Grok Code Fast 1 or Code Fast 1? Anybody? Yet? I don't see any hands. You have. All right. Right. So yeah, it came out, and I was quite surprised when I read about the reviews. People didn't really like it, and they just moved on with life a little bit. And like, sort of this page tries to hype it up as a model that is really fast, and then they show this graph. And I think people kind of misread this graph a little bit, because what it tries to show you is that it's really fast. But what it really shows you is how big the model is. Because if you dig down into how models do inference, at some point it all comes down to QDNN and on NVIDIA graphics cards, and that is more or less all the same. So the actual difference in runtime is usually how big is your model. The bigger the model, the slower it runs, which for the purpose of this napkin math is roughly linear, right? So what you really see here is that Claude Sonnet is somewhere over here in size, or in speed, whereas Grok Code Fast is somewhere here. So roughly half the size of your Claude Sonnet that you would normally use for coding. And that is what makes it fast, but that's also what I think is kind of cool, because that allows XAI to offer it very cheaply. And the other cool fact that I found last week when I was sort of preparing for this is if you check OpenRouter for stats, Grok Code or Code Fast 1 is actually the most popular model on OpenRouter this entire month by like a margin. This is like twice as many tokens generated than Sonnet. So even though nobody talks about it, somehow it's used a lot, right? So yeah, that's the second point. And the third point, to just show more proof that I actually played around with it, I actually wrote, according to Cursor, I wrote roughly 43,000 edits with it. So I've tried a lot of weird things. Yes, what have I done with it? The gist is I'm working on this fun little chat app, which is more or less what you would expect from like a ChatGPT style app, where you have a AI that talks to you. The main two differences is, first of all, I can select which model I want to talk to, similar to how you would do it if you connect it to OpenRouter, where you have connections to Grok, Gemini, etc. And the other one is I have this little, I don't know, brainstorm button here, which basically takes this entire conversation and then sends it to, or the entire context, and sends it to different models so I can get comparison. And that's nice if you want to have, for example, if you're brainstorming something, you're drafting an email, some paragraph doesn't seem quite right, and you want to have some variety on how to phrase it, you're not sure, send it to 5 different models, see what they say, and then pick the one you like the best, right? That's the idea. The way this has looked like up until now, or before I started my little project, is that the sort of architecture for this is something like this. It was purely in the browser, no backend whatsoever, and I just hard-coded the API tokens. Or basically, I showed the user a user interface that says, paste in your API tokens, you pay for it, it's all local on your browser, I don't have anything to do with it, go at it, right? And that was how it looked like. And the thing that I need to transform it into is this, because I would like to also allow people that are less technical to use it. And those people tend to like a user experience where you log in with an email rather than having to figure out where to get API tokens from various AI providers, which seems kind of sensible, right? But that means a lot of restructuring, because you need to add this like fast API layer in the back end. You need some place to store your API keys, which in this case, I chose AWS Secrets for, well, I've worked with it before, that's the reason. And also Superbase, because I wanted to try it for both authentication and for a database, because it's the only service that I found online that offers you a free SQL database. I really don't know if I'm looking in the wrong place, but yeah, that's why Superbase. And then you need to connect it to all the LLM providers. And then it also has to connect to the client, which now suddenly has to support multiple clients, because before it was one user, so the database is very easy. You just ignore the fact that there are multiple people talking. We just have one. Now we have many, and we need to adjust that. And I want all of that to be done by Cloud Code. Sorry, not Cloud Code, by Grok Code Fast 1. And this is how it looks like, basically. Is this a bit small? Yes. Let me try and zoom in so that you can see. Yes, so the code base essentially is Python, which is normal sort of, let me see if I can start. It's basically normal fast API for those of you who've ever built a backend in Python. And that is the majority of it. There is a data model, which is in, looks like this. There's a data model, which is Pydantic, which it has generated. And sort of some of the cooler parts it has generated is I also asked it to generate the SQL for the data model. So it actually wrote SQL. And maybe this is standard now. Like my last time trying to really generate SQL and Terraform files was way back when sort of Copilot was still a thing. Cursor was this new cool thing that everybody should try. And back then, writing anything in SQL with AI was very horrible. It just didn't get it right at all. Same for TensorFlow, not TensorFlow. Same for Terraform. It just didn't work. But now it actually got it right the first time, which I thought was really cool. Maybe that's standard now. Maybe this is a cool new thing for for this Code Fast 1 model. I'm not entirely sure. But it got it right, which was pretty neat. Yes, so that was that piece. Another thing I thought what we try, which I tried actually yesterday, and then I stopped and undid it because I thought it was a quite cool difference between Claude or Sonnet and Code Fast 1, is this. I have changed my data model a little bit. Where do I have it? In conversations. This is the data model. This is types conversation. There we go. So what I've done here is before the ID, the default model and the Spark ID were strings, which are just strings with a UUID value in it. And I changed the data type to UUID because that gives me tighter validation. It also means that UUID is not JSON serializable, so some of the stuff will now throw an error. But I also want this to be consistent. I don't just want one model to be like this. I want them all to be consistent. So every time there's a UUID that pops up, I want to use the UUID type and not the string type. And that's what I'm going to ask it to do now. And we'll see what happens. And it looks very much like, this one is Claude Sonnet for starters, and then we're later going to do the exact same thing with Grok Code. So the two differences are, I can tell you already, while it's generating, Claude will just read all the different files first, and then it will start modifying one file after the other after building this standard to-do list. Grok Code will do a similar approach, but it will think between steps, and it will start editing much sooner. Let's see if I make this smaller. You can see it does what you would expect. It edits the stuff. What's different, let's see if it does it right or not, is one of the two tried to then test the solution and actually then tried to realize that there was a test that was failing because now we changed the types. We get this JSON issue that I talked about, this JSON serialization issue that I talked about before, and then it tried to fix it, whereas the other one just stopped and said, there's something broken, please look at it and fix it. And I think that's a difference in concept between the two models. Sonnet is really good at sort of like the agentic side of things, where it tries to like, how would you describe it? Like, it tries to do the lovable thing where like you give it a task and it tries to solve the entire thing. And then sometimes when it's done with it, it goes off and fixes something else in the code base that it thinks could be improved. Sometimes that's great, sometimes that's not great. Grok Code Fast 1, on the other hand, is on the opposite extreme. It tries to edit very little and then say that it's done early and potentially misses some edits that you want it to do, but it tries to be conservative with the edits that it does. And yes, that's the, is it done? Yes. So this did the changes and did not do the testing. OK. Do I have time to do the other side, or how am I with time? No. OK, then I will wrap it up. The one other, sorry, I mentioned the one thing that I wanted to talk about, which is that agentic versus planning mode. If you want to do to use Grok in planning mode and like sort of like a Claude Code style agentic workflow, don't. It doesn't work. If you do it more in an interactive mode where you sort of say, OK, write this small thing, I'm going to review it. Write this other small thing, I'm going to review it. That's great. And the other point was that it doesn't really fall off a cliff. I mentioned that one. And the other thing is that it will spit out small incremental improvements, which is kind of nice because you can start reviewing while it's still generating code, which I find neat. All right, this is all for now. A bit of a speed run. Any questions?